The National Council of Museums and Monuments, NCMM, recently revealed that Nigeria has reached an agreement with European museums and the German government to begin the return of stolen Benin artifacts from July 2020. According to Professor Abba Tijani, Director General of the NCMM, the federal government had engaged partners such as the Benin Dialogue Group Forum on where the objects domiciled on behalf of museums across the world. The Benin Dialogue Forum has been working hard to track and trace thousands of bronze artifacts that were looted by British soldiers from the ancient kingdom of Benin in 1897. Having fixed a new date for their return, several Nigerians, however, are wondering why the date for their repatriation was moved from this month to July next year. Many are also itching to know the process for their return and where they will be domiciled. A few months ago, there was a public spat between the Abba of Benin, Abba Eware II, and the Edo State Governor, Godwin Obaseki, on who should take custody of the artifacts. Now joining us from our Abuja studio to give us an update on their return and the preparedness of museums in the country to take custody and showcase them is Professor Abba Tijani, Director General of the National Council of Museums and Monuments. Welcome to the show, Professor Tijani, and good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Well, good morning, Professor Tijani. First, let's start with the update on the proposed return of Benin artifacts by the German authorities. The expectation was that by October 2021, or is it November 2021, those 7,000 plus artifacts that the Germans promised to release will have arrived or will arrive. But now we're told that the handing over has been moved to sometime in 2022. What is responsible for that postponement after all the excitement that has been generated? And if we get those artifacts eventually, how is Nigeria preparing to keep those artifacts?
Thank you very much. Let me first correct. This is the National Commission for Museums and Monuments. That's the name of the agency. Thank you. The issue of repatriation is something that dates back to even the period in the 70s when Ekpo Eyo was the first DG to formally request for repatriation of artifacts across museums in Europe and other parts of the world. We are very lucky now to again bring up the issue of repatriation, and it's now yielding results. The German government has formally come out to announce to the world that all artifacts of Benin bronzes will be repatriated to Nigeria. So this is good news, and it's good development in our quest for the return of our looted artifacts. However, we need to understand that there is a process. It's not just like just putting the artifacts and then flight them to Nigeria. That's not how it should be. It has to be done professionally. And don't forget that these objects have been away from the country for decades. And in order for these objects to come back, now that they have, acclimatized to the environment where they are, we need to now prepare ourselves to get these artifacts back. And I want to also correct you that we have not at any point in time said that these objects will start coming this August or this year. Because the German system of government is complicated. It's easy for us here as a federal government, we have the state and the federal. But in Germany, there are regional governments, museums that belong to the regional authorities, to states, and to the federal. And many of our objects are actually scattered around in these different museums. And therefore, the move by the federal government of Germany to repatriate the artifacts does not simply mean that these objects will be released by the regional and the state authorities. So we have to go through the process of negotiations with the federal authorities in Germany representing the government of Germany, and negotiating with these regional governments to agree the modalities for the repatriation of these objects. Now, in Germany alone, we are talking about 1,030 Benin bronzes. And therefore, if these 1,030 Benin bronzes are shipped to Nigeria today, where are they going to be? You know, we need to prepare. So we need to have planned time to prepare ourselves to receive these artifacts. And don't forget that Benin bronzes have assumed certain value in the international market. They are priceless. And therefore, if these objects are going to come back to Nigeria, we have to make sure that the security environment that will provide for this safekeeping of these artifacts are to the maximum, to the international standard, so that these objects cannot just be looted again out of Nigeria as an embarrassment that will find themselves in international markets. So we want to make sure that these artifacts are going to be secured, are going to be in the good and the best environment, and also will be displayed for the people of Nigeria, particularly the people of Edo, who have missed these artifacts for so long. And it is now time for us to provide the environment, the museums that will house these artifacts. So that is where we are, and therefore we are looking at the objects starting to come from around July next year, 2022.
Well, you've just addressed those who rather insultingly claim that Nigeria lacks the capacity to care for these artifacts properly. But where exactly will the artifacts be domiciled? You said that you're making preparations. Where? What is that environment that you refer to?
Well, thank you very much. Our first priority is the Edo people, because these artifacts were actually looted from the palace of the Abba of Benin in 1897. That unfortunate, period incident still is in our minds. So we want to, understand with the people of Edo that these artifacts will come back to Edo, and the people of Edo will have access to these artifacts. And of course, other Nigerians will also have the opportunity to visit where they are going to be displayed, and the international community. So we are looking at different kinds of processes now here. First of all, we have proposed a royal palace museum in the court of Benin. And we have some other palace museums across Nigeria, which are managed by the National Commission for Museums and Monuments. So we have designed a palace museum in 2018, and unfortunately, we are not able to, start the project because, funding is an issue. But now that the objects are planned to come back to Nigeria, we have to, expedite the process of constructing a palace museum in the palace of the Abba, where some of these objects can be displayed. But I want to tell Nigerians that palace museums are restricted, places. It's restricted because it's in the court of the royal fathers. So therefore, the idea is that, when the Abba gets, very important visitors or the family members, he can take them around this museum. So the entrance is restricted to the public. It might be open maybe on weekends for the public. And therefore, there is a need for us to have, another or other, museums of international standard. So as part of the negotiation with our partners who are holding these objects with them now, is that they should support us in the construction of an internationally standard, museum with modern facilities, modern environmental control devices, and the security required. So we are planning with them, and they have agreed to fund such kind of museum sited in Benin. So in addition to the Abba's Palace Museum, we need to have a larger museum that will have the capacity to hold more objects, and also the Edo people and other Nigerians and international visitors will be able to access these, artifacts and, be able to experience these artifacts within the grasp of their region.
Okay.
And also, in addition, we are also going to make this museum a kind of a research site, a research center. So there will be, international scholars that will be visiting these museums. Because these objects have been away out of, the country, and if they are back, the best place to research and find out more about these objects is when they are back in Benin. And therefore, lots of international scholars will be trooping in, yes.
Okay, so there are lots of very nebulous things in what you've said, and just help me unpack it. Number one, you said the Museums Commission will build the Royal Court Museum. If they do that, is it not going to be owned by the National Museums Commission? Because you see, these items were stolen from, they were personal effects of Abba Ovonrawe that the British came to invade. And as at the time of invasion, it was under the Benin people because there was no Nigeria then. It was before 1914. So a lot of people would have thought that you should give back the artifacts to the king or his descendants because it's his personal effects. As a case was done that I was part of with the Nana Living Museum in Koko, where most of Nana Olomu's personal effects were returned to him. So, one, who will be the owner? Two, you say you want to partner with international foreign bodies to help you with building this museum. So if they put money in it, will they have a stake in it? And doesn't it mean that they will partly still own these items together with Nigeria or with the Benin people that should rightfully own the item? Why are we thinking of collecting foreign money? And four, I've gone to many other museums in this country. They have very rich artifacts there, like the War Museum in Benin and the likes. They've not stolen these items. So a lot of people are saying, just bring them back home. We will keep them. Because this narrative of acclimatization, the artifacts were made at our backyard here in Benin in the first place. That's what a lot of people are arguing.
Thank you very much. I think there's a need for us to understand that museum is an institution, and therefore it's a public place, and therefore you have to open it to the public. You have to open your door to the public to access these artifacts. When we say we are going to partner with the Abba to have a palace museum, we are not saying that that the museum belongs to NCMM or to the Abba. It's part of our responsibility to construct museums across the country. And in doing that, we have different kinds of museums. We have specialist museums. We have palace museums. We have, other kinds of museums. So this palace museum is one of the areas we are partnering, because our traditional rulers, our royal fathers, the traditional institutions are our major partners. They are the custodians of our culture and heritage. And therefore, partnering with them is inevitable. So the question of saying that the commission owns the museum or so does not arise. It's not about owning the structure, but allowing the artifacts to be there and within the purview of His Royal Majesty to take his visitors around. So the artifacts are there, are back in Nigeria, and they are going to be in the museums. So the question of saying that the National Commission is taking away the ownership of the museum from the Royal Fathers does not even arise, because we are, as part of our responsibility to help in the establishments of these museums. So that is one. Secondly, to talk about getting foreign money to build museums for us, I think we need to really understand, what international partnership and collaboration is. How many facilities are being funded by foreign institutions and foreign governments in Nigeria? So will museum be a different thing? So a museum is an international institution. That's why we have tourists. We have to attract people from outside the country. We are now looking at going beyond just taking possession of our artifacts and keeping them in storage. No, we want the international community to troop in, to see that these artifacts are back in their right place. Let us go and see how these objects are exhibited. And one of the things is that we want to change the narratives, the style of exhibitions. We are not going to exhibit these objects in the way in which the European museums have been exhibiting them. We want to contextualize these artifacts so that when you come, you will understand about the objects, its history, its background, more than just displaying objects on its own with some textual, these things accompanying it. That's not what we want to do. We want to make it in a way that it will be interactive. And we want to even go beyond that so that our youth, we want to now take the attention of our youth from, drugs and other things, so that they will be able to be attracted to museums. So in doing so, we have to now digitize our objects. We need to make it interactive. We need to provide it on various platforms that our youth will be able to engage, will be able to interact with. So in collaborating with our partners, if these our partners have our museums for so long, it is rightful for them also to contribute towards managing these objects back when they come back to Nigeria. And that's what we are saying. We are saying you need to help us in also funding museums to international standard. And I think that is scholarship, that is collaboration. So it's not about, asking them to take our responsibility. No, it's just part of their own, contribution towards, looking after our objects. And the other thing you mentioned about, the issue of, environment, acclimatization, and so on. In museums, anywhere you go, we are very conscious of these artifacts. They are historic artifacts. They are antiquities. The more they live, the more they need attention. It's just like us. So therefore, anything can make these objects degrade. Any environmental change can affect the environment. So therefore, we want to prove that we will be able to take care of our objects properly. And therefore, providing the necessary environment is very important. And that is what we are talking. So it's not like these are excuses. All of us want these artifacts back. And we are talking of how many decades? The first attempt was made in 1977, just prior to the first act. And that was not successful. So now we have engaged with our partners, particularly with the Germans. And now they are willing to repatriate these objects. Wow. And we are looking forward to other, countries and museums to take part as we are engaging with them as well.
Well, Prof, it's good to have you on the program as the man in charge of the National Commission on Museums. I wish we'll have a lot of time to deal with some other issues. But first, I think in communicating this very important subject to Nigerians, the various stakeholders involved in government will have to, synergize better because there's so much incoherence. Now, the date of October 2021, which you said nobody ever put a date to, it was actually the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that said so. And when he said so in July, he mentioned 7,000 artifacts from Germany. Now you say 1,300 artifacts, but actually 1,030 artifacts. But actually another figure is out there, 1,130. So, we need to engage more at the level of the facts and coherence. However, one of the issues that came up was the Germans saying that they would determine which artifact that they would send and also give conditions. And I recall the Minister of Information putting out a response out there that no, what Nigeria would be interested in is full and unconditional return of those artifacts. You say negotiations are continuing. What are those conditions? Or you've been able to agree that there will be the return of the artifacts will be unconditional. Second issue, Chimamanda Adichie, the famous writer, when she was a guest speaker at the Humboldt Foundation not up to a month ago, drew attention to the fact that the United Kingdom should follow the lead and the example of Germany. Now the UK has this policy that, they can give the artifacts out on loan, even for an extended period. Are we also negotiating with the British? And if we are we making any progress?
Thank you very much. When we are talking about 7,000, I think we are talking about worldwide. In Germany, we have 1,030. And the Benin bronzes across the world are still being collated. The information is being collated. That's why we have what we call the digital Benin. And that is where we have digitization of all the Benin bronzes across the world and where they are. So with that, we will be able to know where these objects are. At the moment, in some countries, there are countries that they have some few Benin bronzes, which we are yet to also discover. So the ones we know are the ones we are talking about. And therefore, when we're talking about October and the rest, we have some other bits and pieces of artifacts that we have been taking possession of. And these ones are not the collective ones from institutions or from big museums. For example, this October, we are going to travel to the UK. The British Museum is hosting us for the Benin Dialogue Group. And during that period, we are going to take possession of the famous cockerel or cocoa in Cambridge. It's ready for us to take these objects back to Nigeria. And then the University of Aberdeen is also releasing the artifacts for us, the Benin bronze. So we are taking possession of, small bits and bits. And I will be traveling next month to the US to take possession of 3 of our artifacts that were missing in one of our museums. So we have been able to discover where they are now. So we are bringing them back. So that's why we say these are processes that are ongoing. And the issue of conditions attached to the repatriation of objects, of Benin bronzes, there are no conditions at all. No conditions attached, as the Honorable Minister said, no conditions attached to this, to the return of these objects. And the return is full return. But what we are saying is that under this institutional development, under museums, we have what we call collaborative joint exhibitions. The most important thing is that these artifacts are now, they have agreed to return them legally our own. Though we are saying that legally our own, but we don't have control of them. Now we are taking control of them, taking possession of these objects. So we are the one now to determine how these objects or any form of collaboration that will come in, we are the one to determine whether it's traveling exhibition or whether giving objects on loan to exhibit, which at the moment we have collaboration with other museums across the world where there is a traveling exhibition now, what is called the Caravan of Gold. Even Ghana is part of that. It's now in the Smithsonian in New York, in the US. So we do this as museums, and we have been doing it for long. And we have some of our artifacts that are on loan, on exhibition in some museums outside. So we do this. So it does not mean that we will not continue in this partnership, with other museums. We do that, and we want revenue. We want to generate revenue with these artifacts. So therefore, collaboration and joint travel exhibition and so on will now bring revenue to us. And this is where we are lacking at the moment. All of our museums generate just minor, revenue, because only visitors go there, Nigerians go there, and then pay for entrance fees, some of them. There are no activities, no engagement in scholarship, no international collaborations, because paying for ticket for entrance cannot generate a revenue for you, much revenue. So therefore, we have other activities in the museum that generate revenue. And one of these is this collaborative exhibition, travel exhibitions, and so on. So these are the kind of things that we are looking at. I think you had a third question, which if you can remind me, please.
No, about the British specifically, and the comment that...
yes, sorry, yes. Yes, sorry. The British Museum is the most complicated one, even in the international community. They have all sorts of laws, all sorts of things, but we are saying that it's not impossible. We are going to submit a formal letter during this Benin Dialogue Group, to the British Museum for formal, request returning for repatriation of our objects, and we'll take it up from there. We will do all our best to see that the British Museum also return our objects. And there are many other countries we are engaging with: New Zealand, in the US, France, Netherlands, Austria. So many countries we are already in contact with that are ready to, start the process of this negotiation and the return of the Benin bronzes.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Tijani, for joining us on the morning show. We wish you all the best as you continue to defend the interests of Nigeria and also our heritage. Thank you very much indeed.